Don't trade time, create value. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're working nonstop every single day, yet you're still not getting anywhere? Like you're running fast, but you're not even sure where you're going? You show up to work, you finish your tasks, you're responsible, you're trying your best. But deep down, there's a quiet voice inside that whispers, is this really all there is? One of my students, a female entrepreneur, almost 40, once told me during a private session, Coach, I feel like I'm in a race against time. I keep working and working, but something always feels missing. I'm exhausted. And what I told her is what I want to share with you today. Maybe the issue isn't your effort. Maybe it's what you're trading in return. Here's the truth. Time is limited, but value is limitless. Wealthy people don't get paid for how many hours they work. They get paid for how much impact they create. Just think about this. Two people work for the same 2 hours. One earns $20, the other earns $20,000. What's the difference? It's not time. It's value. It's the skill set. It's the thinking. It's the strategy behind it. Remember this. If you keep trading time for money, you will always be capped. But if you learn to create value, there are no more limits. So instead of asking, how can I get more hours? Start asking, how can I become more valuable? That one shift in thinking changes everything. And it all begins with developing high-value skills. I've coached hundreds of clients, and here's what I've seen. The ones who grow the fastest are the ones who invest in themselves. They master skills like sales and influence, leadership, negotiation, strategic thinking, system-building mindset. Now, don't get overwhelmed. You don't need all of them. Pick just one. Go deep, and I promise, your life will start to shift. I'm not saying you have to quit your job tomorrow. I'm saying start investing in your value today, right now. Because when you do, something incredible happens. The world responds. Opportunities show up. People don't just pay you for your time anymore. They pay you for the difference you make. And in the end, time will pass no matter what. But value, that's something you can multiply forever. Money doesn't come from work. It comes from how you think. I know this might sound a little counterintuitive, but let me ask you something. Why is it that some people work hard their whole lives and still stay broke, while others with just one idea completely change their lives? I had a client once, a software engineer, smart guy, stable income, technically really good at what he does. But for 10 straight years, his savings account barely moved. One day, he sat across from me and asked, Kim, I'm not lazy. I work every single day, but why do I always feel like I'm falling behind? I looked at him and said honestly, because you're thinking like an employee, not like a value creator. And that's the distinction I want you to remember. Poor people sell labor. Rich people sell ideas. The poor believe the more hours I work, the more money I'll make. But the wealthy, they understand something different. They know that money flows from systematic thinking. They don't just work, they build. They don't just sell effort, they sell solutions. Think about it. Steve Jobs didn't create the iPhone by sitting down and coding it line by line. He used his mind as a creator, a strategist. Now, I'm not saying you need to become a billionaire, but I am saying this. Start thinking like an investor, someone who sees every action as a way to generate returns. And start thinking like an entrepreneur, not just doing a job, but building systems, creating services, offering value that can grow and multiply. Ask yourself this. If I stopped working today, would my money still keep flowing? If the answer is no, then maybe it's time to change how you think. Stop thinking like someone earning by the hour and start thinking like someone building intelligent, sustainable income. Because in the end, you're not paid for how many hours you put in. You're paid for the thinking you bring to the world. Systems beat motivation every single time. I want you to imagine this. Every day, you're reminding yourself to save. You're forcing yourself not to overspend. You're trying to stay motivated to invest regularly. Now tell me, how long do you think you can keep that up? Eventually, you burn out. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. And humans, we get tired. We get emotional. We change. One of my clients, a marketing director, once told me, Kim, I make great plans. But by the end of the month, I've spent it all. One stressful week, and boom, my whole budget is out the window. And I told her something I want you to hear today. The problem isn't your plan. The problem is your lack of a system. You see, wealthy people don't succeed because of inspiration. They succeed because they don't trust inspiration. They know feelings come and go. So instead of trying to manage their emotions every day, they build automated systems that make smart decisions even when they don't feel like it. They set up automatic transfers. 20% of income goes straight to savings the moment their paycheck lands. They automate monthly investments. No need to remember, no need to think. They set spending limits on credit cards, so emotions don't wreck their progress. These systems, they protect them from themselves. Systems are the solid shoulder you lean on when your willpower is low. They're the bodyguard for your wealth when your mind is tired. I always tell my students, don't try to become a superhero of discipline. Become the architect of a smart system. Because when you stop relying on willpower and start letting your system do the work, you win, steadily, peacefully, and for the long haul. Small daily habits, massive results over time. I want you to pause for just a moment and picture this. You read just 10 pages a day. That's it. It takes less than 20 minutes. But after 1 year, that's nearly 3,650 pages, roughly 15 to 20 books. Now imagine if all those books were about money, mindset, or business. How would your thinking change? One of my close friends, a doctor, once said to me, Kim, I don't have time to study finance, but I made a commitment to read just 5 minutes a day about investing. 2 years later, I built a 6-figure investment portfolio on my own. That's the power of compounding. And I want you to remember this. Intensity might create quick wins, but consistency builds wealth. The most successful people I've coached, they're not always explosive, but they do the right things, long enough and often enough. Another student of mine started investing just 1% of her income every week. It felt like nothing, barely noticeable. But after 5 years, that account grew big enough to start her own fund, helping women entrepreneurs over 40 launch their first business. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was compound interest, not just of money, but of behavior. And you know what the best part is? Tiny changes don't hurt. You don't need to push yourself to the edge. You don't need to be a hero. You just need to move a little every day. Cut one expense, read one more page, invest 1 more percent. And one day, 5 or 10 years from now, you'll look in the mirror and barely recognize yourself in the best way. I always say, big outcomes are born from very small habits. So if you're looking for financial transformation, don't stare at the top of the mountain. Just take one step, then another, and another. No drama, no fireworks, just quiet persistence. Because in the end, it's steady progress that separates you from the 97% who give up. Track your money. Take back your financial power. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be really honest. You probably know how much you earn each month, but do you actually know where every dollar goes once it leaves your account? One of my clients, a software engineer earning over $120K a year, said to me during a mentoring session, Kim, I feel like I'm doing okay. I'm not in debt. I'm not broke. But I always feel like, I don't know where my money goes. It just disappears. So I gave him a simple challenge. Track every expense. Just for 2 weeks. The result? He found out he had spent over $900 on things he couldn't even remember. Coffee runs, random app subscriptions, takeout, service fees here and there. And here's the truth I want you to take with you. You can't manage what you don't measure. What you track improves. What you ignore leaks. Wealthy people don't just know how much they earn. They know exactly where their money flows, what purpose it serves, and whether it's working for them or against them. Now look, I'm not saying you need to log every penny by hand, but you do need a system, a simple app, a spreadsheet, or even just reviewing your bank statement once a week. Because only when you see your full financial picture can you start making better decisions. What to cut, what to keep, what to invest in. And you know what's amazing? Once you start tracking, you begin to feel in control. And with control comes power. And with power comes real financial freedom. I always tell my students, freedom doesn't come from how much money you have. It comes from knowing exactly where it's going and being in charge of that direction. So don't just work for your money. Learn to lead it. Spend with purpose, not with emotion. Let me ask you a real question. Have you ever bought something, then got home, looked at it, and thought, did I really need this? Yeah, me too. And trust me, you're not the only one. Studies show that 97% of our spending decisions are emotional. Only 3% are truly strategic. We spend when we're stressed. We spend when we're lonely. We spend to reward ourselves. We spend to feel enough, even just for a few fleeting minutes. I had a student, she owns a nail salon in Houston, who once shared with me, Kim, every time I get into a fight with my husband, I go on an impulse shopping trip. No plan, just swipe. And by the end of the month, I look at my account and regret everything. So I asked her this, if every time you felt upset, you burned a $100 bill, would you do it? She laughed, then got quiet. Because in truth, that's what unconscious spending is like. Now, wealthy people, they think differently. They spend like investors. Every dollar has a job, a purpose, a return. Even when they buy a shirt or a fancy dinner, they know, is this for connection, confidence, image, energy, joy? It's intentional, not impulsive. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to tell you to live frugally or count every penny. But I do want to offer you a simple question before your next swipe. Is this purchase bringing me closer to my dream or further away? Because here's the truth. Every dollar you spend is a vote for the future you want. And if you don't give your money a clear plan, your emotions will take over and spend it for you. Let your money be a warrior, fighting for your freedom, for your dreams, for the person you're becoming. Spend with purpose, because you deserve a future that's built on intention, not impulse. Pay yourself first. Start your wealth journey here. I want you to imagine this for a second. You work an entire month. You put in the hours, the stress, the late nights. And when your paycheck finally comes in, you say, I'll give it all away first to everyone else. And whatever's left, I'll keep for me. Sounds crazy, right? But the truth is, that's exactly how most people live. The moment money hits their account, they pay rent, they pay bills, they pay off debt, they buy groceries, clothes, toys for the kids, and then they say, if there's anything left, I'll save. And guess what? There's usually nothing left. Now listen, I've worked with hundreds of clients over the years, and I've lived this myself. Wealth doesn't begin with how much you earn. It begins with how much you keep for yourself. Wealthy people live by one quiet but powerful principle. Pay yourself first. It doesn't matter if it's 10, 15%, or even just 5% of what you earn. Take it the moment money comes in. Put it into a separate account. Call it your freedom fund, your seed account, your future vault. Call it whatever you want. But understand this. This money is not for bills, not for emergencies, not for anyone else. It's for you, for the future you are building, for the freedom you deserve. One client once told me, Kim, I feel selfish saving money for myself, like I should always put others first. And I smiled and said, it's not selfish, it's self-respect. Because if you don't pay you, you'll always be paying for someone else's dream. And the truth is, you can't take care of the world if you're running on empty. Saving money isn't just about the numbers. It's about making a quiet, powerful statement. I am worthy of a better future, and I'm building it $1 at a time. Start there, not because it's easy, but because you're worth it. Self-education, the real key to freedom. I once asked a friend of mine, he's the CEO of a major company, if you lost everything today, had to start over from zero, what would you take with you? He didn't even hesitate. He said, I take my daily learning habit because that is what built everything I have today. And you know what? He's right. Think about it. School teaches us how to get a job, but it rarely teaches us how to build wealth. No one shows you how to manage money, how to invest, how to turn $1 into 10. And that's why so many people, smart, hardworking, educated, still struggle financially. Let me ask you this. Since the day you graduated, how much have you actually learned that makes you wealthier? If the answer is not much, that's okay, because you can start today, right now. Just 15 minutes a day, that's all it takes. Read about personal finance, watch a video on simple investing, learn strategic thinking in business. You don't need to become an expert overnight. You just need to understand enough so no one can mislead you, so you can see the game for what it really is. Because the world doesn't reward the hardest worker. It rewards the one who understands the rules. I once coached a single mom. She worked as an office accountant. Every morning before work, she spent 15 minutes reading finance books. 2 years later, she bought her first apartment. 4 years later, she had two more rental properties. She looked at me and said, I didn't get richer by working more. I got richer by learning more. Isn't that powerful? Self-education is the greatest power you have. It can't be taxed. It can't be stolen. It doesn't lose value with inflation. And once you have it, you own the freedom to design life on your terms. So if you're wondering where to start by learning, because the more you know, the freer you become. Wealth is a state of mind, not a bank balance. I once sat across from a man. He was in his 50s, a CEO of a major company, big house, luxury cars, investments everywhere. But his eyes, they looked heavy, like he was carrying a weight no one else could see. During our conversation, he said something that stuck with me. Kim, I have money, but I still feel anxious. I still feel like it could all fall apart at any moment. I paused. Then I asked him one simple question. What is it that you really want from money? He looked at me, smiled, but it was one of those tight, painful smiles. I just want to feel enough. And that's when it hit me. So many people think they're poor because they lack money, but in truth, they feel poor because they lack peace of mind. Have you ever felt that way? You work hard, you hustle, you try to earn more, save more, build more. And yet deep down, there's still this feeling. What if it's not enough? What if I lose it all? What if I fail? I say this to you not as a guru, but as someone who's been through the struggle too. Wealth doesn't begin in your bank account. It begins in your mind. Poor thinking says, if I just had more money, I'd be okay. But here's the truth. If your mindset is broken, you could hand someone $1 million and they'd burn through it in just a few years. Because the problem isn't the money. It's the way they relate to money, the way they think, feel, fear, and fantasize about it. I've seen people with average incomes live in peace, calm, intentional, building wealth slowly but steadily. And I've seen high-income earners live in fear, spending wildly to fill a hole they don't even understand. You know what I've learned? The root of poverty is in your wallet. It's in your beliefs, in your emotions, in that quiet inner voice that says, you're not there yet, you're not enough yet. But when you begin to shift that voice, when you start seeing money not as a source of fear, but as a tool for freedom, everything changes. Because when your mind becomes rich, your life will follow, and your bank account, it'll catch up every time. Build multiple income streams. Don't bet your life on one card. I want you to imagine this. You're walking across a narrow bridge. Below you is a deep canyon, and this bridge, it's being held up by just one single support beam. Now think about this. If that one support fails, everything comes crashing down. Scary, right? But the truth is, that's exactly how most people are living. They have one source of income, one job, one paycheck, and they don't even realize they're one decision away from financial collapse. Have you ever felt that kind of pressure? I once worked with a man, an engineer, making about $3,000 a month. He had a house, a car, a family. Everything looked good on paper. Then one day, his company restructured and he lost his job. And I'll never forget what he told me. Kim, I'm not afraid of being unemployed. I'm afraid because I don't have a plan B. I bet my entire life on a single income stream. That's when it hit him. You see, financially smart people don't put all their eggs in one basket. Financially free people don't rely on just one stream of cash. They build multiple pillars, not all massive, but steady, predictable, and within their control. I often tell my students to start simple. You don't need 10 income streams on day one, but you do need to stop thinking like someone who only trades time for money. Here's a simple structure I share. 1. Active income, your main job or a side hustle. 2. Long-term investments, stocks, real estate, index funds. 3. Passive income, online sales, royalties, or income from assets you've built. It's okay if you're just getting started, but you've got to begin seeing yourself not just as a worker, but as someone who owns a system. Because true freedom doesn't come from a high salary. It comes from not depending on only one source of money. So ask yourself today, if I lost my job tomorrow, how long could I stand on my own? If the answer scares you, That's not a reason to panic. That's your invitation to start building, one stream at a time. Build a legacy, not just a living will. Let me ask you something. If one day you're no longer here, what will you leave behind? Not in your wallet, but in the hearts, the minds, and the lives of those who came after you. You see, most people spend their entire lives just trying to survive, paying bills, counting down to the next paycheck, worrying about next month's rent. They live in reaction, not in vision. But the wealthy, they think differently. They don't just plan for this year, they plan for the next decade. They don't just think about their children, they think about their grandchildren, their community, their legacy. I once worked with a student, a single mother. She worked a regular 9-to-5 job, nothing fancy, but she did something extraordinary. Every week she played investment games with her son, using fake money. She gave him books about personal finance. She taught him the value of saving, of thinking long term, of using money as a tool, not a trap. And one day she told me something I'll never forget. Kim, I don't want my son to repeat the same struggles I've been through. I'm planting a different mindset in him while he's still young. That is legacy. You don't need to be a millionaire to leave a legacy. You just need to think like someone who will be remembered. Write a book. Document your financial journey. Teach your kids how to handle money with wisdom. Share your knowledge, even if you're still in the process of building your wealth. Because wealth isn't about how much cash you carry. It's about how deeply you impact the world, even after you're gone. The bigger message: money was never the destination. It's just the vehicle. Freedom, that's the real goal. Legacy, that's the true reward. And the path there, it's not for the scattered, not for the reactive, not for those chasing temporary highs. It's for the ones who think big, act with discipline, and live like they're wealthy, even before the money comes. You can start that journey today with a simple notebook, a small savings habit, or by asking yourself, what am I leaving behind for the next generation? Because that moment, that question, that shift is the beginning of a life that's not just about surviving, but about making your mark. A mark that lasts,